Welcome, everybody, from wherever you are joining us. You might be a Kiwi watching in New Zealand, you might be an Australian, you might be joining from anywhere. Wherever you are, welcome along to this Right Group live Q&A. We are live, and today the topic is AI. It's on the tip of everybody's tongue, and we're the experts in writing and plain language and clear communication, and we've got some really, really good stuff to share with you today. And I'm just going to go out there and say it. We've only got half an hour. So we're going to pack as much information as we can in this session, but we're not going to give you everything that you could ever ask for. I'm sorry to say it, but you can get everything that you would ever ask for in our AI workshop. So today we're talking about writing, we're talking about AI and how to avoid this term that we've heard a lot, slop, AI slop. None of us want it, none of us want to read it, none of us want to produce it. So we're going to give you some really practical tips today about how you can go about preventing that. And we have two fantastic, knowledgeable, wise, experienced people with us today, Claire and Lynda. They're going to be answering your questions. So they've got some great stuff to say. And the great thing about a Q&A is that you can submit a question. So you'll see down the bottom of the Zoom bar there, you can see the Q&A function. If you've come along with something that you really want to ask, do ask it. If something that Claire or Lynda says during the session makes you think about something more deeply, and you want an answer, put it in the Q&A and we will do our best to get through as many questions as we can. Now, I'll pass it over in a second for Lynda and Claire to introduce themselves if you haven't met them already. So I'll do that now. Lynda, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Kia ora everyone, and no pressure Thomas with that intro. So I'm the founder of Right, Chief Executive, and so obviously I've been around for rather a long time. And plain language, I guess, is my passion. It's what we live and breathe every day. And I guess I should probably quickly say why we got into AI, because we got on board with AI quite early on for probably very obvious reasons, that if we didn't, we risked being left behind. If we were to believe all the AI hype early on, it was all about making so many jobs redundant, writers wouldn't be needed, and we could just not see how that could possibly be true. So we really quickly created the brand AI+Human and were determined to work out how we could use AI productively, but always retain our authentic human selves. So that's me.
Lovely. Thank you, Lynda. Thanks for joining us. And Claire, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I'm Claire. My background is in communications, marketing communications, and I first encountered plain language a long time ago in actually a hospital setting because there was lots of different languages. But I found that the principles of clear writing just work for every context that I've ever had to do work in communications. And so I love it. I'm on the training team here at Write, and I do think it's the best team to be part of because we get to go out and see people, hear how they're using different tools and techniques and how it's working with their work. So I love it.
Awesome. Thank you, Claire. Thanks for joining us. Now, one way that we start all of these live Q&As that we do is with the top 3 tips. One of the things that we're often telling people to do in our workshops and when we're advising is to summarize, bring the main messages up to the top. So I'm going to challenge our consultants today to do that. And they're going to start by giving us their top 3 tips for using AI as a writing tool to make you better. And as Lynda mentioned, making sure that you're seeing AI as not something that's going to replace you. It's going to make you much, much better. So Claire, we're going to start with you. Give viewers out there your top 3 tips for using AI to make you a better writer.
I think the 3 things I would think of are firstly, get the thinking done, have fun with it, and focus on the writing. So what that would be, the thinking, it's a bit like that idea of if you've got an hour to cut down a tree, spend 59 minutes sharpening your axe. I think putting the thought in before you jump into using a tool can really change the outcome. So just thinking exactly what you're trying to get and where it's going to work and all of those sort of things. The next thing I think is just holding it lightly and having a bit of fun. I feel like as a collective, we've got our heads around some of the ethical and privacy concerns and all of those types of things to use it responsibly. But when you just play, you learn a lot. So it might be just things like rewrite this and make it less boring or something. Just, I think, relaxing and really playing. And then the last thing would be to focus on the writing, the final output. So good writing is still good writing. And just because it sounds perhaps different to what you normally write doesn't mean that it's the best output. Just really bringing that human editing skills, I think, is awesome. So that's from me.
Ooh, power pack. Great. Thank you, Claire. Over to you, Lynda. What would you say your top 3 tips are for folks out there who want to use AI to be a better writer?
Okay, so I always think the first thing I always think of is to remember that you're in charge. You are metaphorically holding the pen, and AI is purely a tool. And it's basically up to you how you use it. You don't need to feel compelled to use AI extensively. Just like any tool, like your cell phone, you could use it just to make calls, or you can use it for many, many other things. So it is with AI. And I guess leading on from that, I would say that one thing where AI can be very helpful is to look at building AI plus human workflows. Actually, really, it should probably go human plus AI plus human workflows. So particularly when you're creating content, to look at breaking down that content into all of its different steps, right from creating the idea, the purpose, all of that, and then working out where is the human needed in this process. And you will be very surprised actually that not only can it not do without the human, but that human component is strong even if you are using AI to draft. And there's lots of ways in which we could develop that question a lot, actually. But my third tip would be to remember or to know that plain language is your secret sauce. Whatever AI produces for you requires your human brain, your critical thinking, all the nuances and understanding that you have about that context or that situation, and that you can apply plain language as the refining tool all the way through, and understanding plain language and all of its principles, all captured in the right plain language standard. Having that by your side will change the way you use AI for the better.
Lovely. Okay, folks, well, there are 6 top tips that you can take away immediately. There's probably a few things in there that Lynda or Claire have shared that you want to know a little bit about. If there are, and I assume there are, because there's a lot to talk about today, we've only got half an hour, 20 more minutes, then you can ask a question for your very self. Down the bottom of the Zoom bar, you'll see the Q&A function. Click that, type your question in, and if you get in quick, you will be able to have your question answered. Now, let's start off with this concept of work slop. We've got a question here just to begin with. I'm worried about using AI because I've seen so much low quality content online. How do I avoid creating AI slop myself? So let's start just with some really simple premises about avoiding the negative stuff. And then very soon we'll move into some of the more advanced ways that you can really take your writing to the next level. So let's look at some obvious things that might create some of that poor content that we're seeing online. Lynda, are you all right to start on some thoughts here?
Sure. I think the question is, how can we avoid AI slop? I think one useful thing, whoever's asked that question, and it is common to all of us, it's happened, if we look at the difference between a piece of writing that we have created that works and then what we created using AI where it doesn't work, isolate what does work in the piece that you did yourself or that you're proud of, because that will give you a lot of hints. But when we think about using AI, it's all in the setup to start with. So thinking about those plain language principles of who am I writing for? What does my audience want? What is the purpose of my writing? And what content must it include? And specifying that in your prompt, thinking that through is going to make a really big difference to start with. And then I would just then go on through the plain language standard and be instructing the AI about what I want my sentences, what style I want for my sentences, that I'm writing in a conversational, friendly way, and that I don't want my sentences to be much longer than, on average, maybe 15 words, that please keep the paragraph short. There's a lot of things all inherent in plain language that your AI needs that guidance. Without it, you're going to get something that doesn't sound it doesn't sound, well, perhaps it doesn't sound like you, but people can tell. And people are getting wiser and smarter about identifying something that just feels off. And sometimes I've heard of someone saying that they used AI, and actually they hadn't. They just hadn't written it well. But people are so attuned to looking for it now.
Claire, what would you say? What are the biggest culprits or the biggest causes of AI slop that we would see?
Yeah, I think perhaps one real danger is if you're just asking it to produce an output, like write me an article, write me an email, write me a Facebook post. And even potentially it looks fine when you read it. The thing is, there's millions of other people asking the same thing. I have seen, like, say, university projects where each individual probably thought it sounded cool, but when you see 100 of them, they're very similar. And the other thing is knowing exactly what you want, a little bit like what Lynda said. So before you even start, being really clear about who am I writing for? Is it busy readers or is it technical people? Is it going to be online in a website or is it going to be a proposal? And using that to set it up and break down the steps. So I think that can help get the substance. What are the main points people need to know about this thing? What are some examples that people could relate to? And then once you've got that kind of stuff, moving into the actual final output stage.
Yeah, very good, very good. I think people thinking that the one-shot prompt is going to give them exactly what they want is just diabolical. We've got a question here from Erin, and this is a question looking for a little bit more information on one of the things that you mentioned, Lynda, about workflows. So maybe thinking about how we're trying to move away from that one-shot prompt and think of the different parts of the process that we might apply AI. Erin has asked, what sort of human workflows do you use at Right when you're helping customers? So I wonder if there's an example type of thing where we might use AI at different stages of the writing process.
Okay. I will see if I can manufacture one. So let's think. So say we wanted to write a travel policy. So straight away, you need to be thinking about who it's for. So let's say that in this case, it was for senior managers traveling overseas to a conference or a meeting. So that's now getting a bit specific. And the purpose of the policy would just simply be to make rules and guidance and expectations clear. But these are things that here we are now, AI+Human. The human is beginning this process. And so if you were to document each step as we go, almost in a table, to start with, here we've got the human. Now you might think, well, what goes in a travel policy? Plenty of people have written travel policies before, maybe AI can help me here. So now we've thought about audience and purpose, now we're getting on to content. So this is where AI can be super useful. So we're going to ask, we're going to give it the context and see what it comes up with. Now, I often like to use two different LLMs, two different large language models, because you get a bit of this and a bit of that. So now I've got my content, but now I need to ask myself, I'm the human, what's relevant here? Some of it will be entirely, just not at all useful. Others will be, oh, I hadn't thought of that before. It might trigger something in your mind too about something very specific to your context. So you're refining and building content at that point. Then you want to tell the AI what you want this output. So if you're thinking you'll get the AI to draft it, now you need to be instructing the AI about what you want. And there will be things that you always want. You always want New Zealand English, or probably New Zealand spelling. We here always want sentence case, that thing I said before about shorter sentences. So you're going to give that guidance. You might also show the AI another policy that you have so that maybe you've got a bit of a template. So now we're really giving as much fine guidance as we can, and we've thought about purpose and audience and content. So then perhaps we get it drafts it, and now you've got an output. So now is the time to go through with the plain language standard and everything you know about good writing, and you're going to edit. And this is also where you're going to check the voice, the nuances, all those extra little things, make sure that it does comply with your template. And that basically then, and then of course, we know that AI is pretty good with proofreading as long as it knows, again, some of the constraints. One thing also, you might get to the end and think, oh my gosh, I didn't check. This needs to go to legal and HR now. So these thoughts often occur at the end, but that's something we could have built in further into the process. So that's a more human that we're injecting. So I literally see it as a table for content tasks. And it won't be perfect to start with, and you might chop and change it, but at least you are imposing a workflow structure and trying to get to an ideal. And it will change with different tasks as well.
No, that's great, Lynda. I mean, really what you're pointing to there is the discrete tasks in producing writing. Sometimes when we think of writing, we think of just sitting down at the keyboard or using pen and paper, who knows, and just typing and writing. And writing is such a bigger task than that. There's the thinking and the planning, the actual writing, the editing, all of those phases. So you've given a good example there of how we can use it with different roles in mind. Claire, do you have anything to add in there in terms of maybe where you've seen AI do one of those roles really well or not so well? Or any general tips for people if they're looking to think about AI workflows?
Yeah, I wanted to jump in because at Write, we really focus on getting that quality writing output. But with the marketing hat on that I sometimes wear, the AI in those marketing tools and content production is really exciting in terms of responding to customers, all the automations and things. And it just reminded me of one little sort of workflow that we have at Write around policy. So at Write, we have beautiful policies. I have to say they're in lovely, clear language and you can find whatever you want. It's not like other workplaces where you just hope that you never have to deal with them. They're just beautiful. And we're a B Corp, so they're clear and accessible. But with our own AI, we have a tool where you can go and say in the policy, what do I do if I need to take Friday off or I've got a funeral to attend, and as a person, and then the AI has already in there, someone needs leave in a short notice, they're probably in a rush, so be short, be clear, just deliver the message and keep it minimal. But if someone is looking to understand bereavement, that the AI is signaled, take a sympathetic tone, be empathetic in your answer, acknowledge what they're going through. And even though that's an internal thing, I think the same type of workflow could apply to customers as well. And again, we can do that because we've got the content team who's just so good at defining what those different tones are. So yeah, it's exciting.
Lovely. Let's keep going with the questions. We'll just touch on really quickly that there's a lot of writing out there, but I'm interested from a writing point of view. A few people have asked, what's the best AI to use? So you could either talk what's your personal favorite for certain writing tasks, or the one that you just go to most of all and maybe why. So Claire, what's the AI that you use most of all, really for writing, let's say?
Sorry to say this, I think they all do have their place. And at Write, we have our own internal AI tool that puts plain language techniques at the forefront. So that's really valuable. I also find myself using Perplexity a lot because it's really good for research and setting parameters around research, and also for uploading kind of basin guidance documents. I saw someone asked, can you get AI to write to guidance rather than a prompt? And certainly Perplexity and our internal one are those tools where you can put in a standard or some sample text or upload quite big guidance that will always be behind the prompts. So yeah, those are two things that I really appreciate, the being able to structure the research and read that other guidance.
Yep. Okay, your thoughts, Lynda? You have a go-to or a highly recommended?
I do have a go-to. I often think it's a bit controversial because I do find that Grok, that's XAI, is very, very thorough and usually gives extremely well-considered answers or responses, certainly the sorts of things that I'm asking. I also do use Gemini and Anthropic Claude quite a bit as well, mostly when I'm doing those comparisons. That would be a good tip, I think. If you can just not rely on one, it's amazing how different LLMs will treat something that you put into it. And they're all changing so fast as well. So it almost isn't possible to declare that this is the best.
We all have favorites.
Do what Claire said and play and compare.
Very good. Okay, let's move into that final phase of writing, the reviewing. So one thing that I think is probably a cause of AI slop is that it gets past that reviewing process. People either don't realize that it's a little bit funny, or maybe they don't have a really good review phase. So one of our viewers has asked, do you recommend using AI as a review tool of writing, where we apply our knowledge and intent first? Or do you apply AI and then review it as a writer? So interesting question there. I think the main thing is there, is AI good at reviewing or is it not? What would you say, Lynda?
I think it can be good at reviewing, but it isn't good at reviewing necessarily unless you tell it what to review for. So you still have to give it some criteria. And we know this only too well because for the last maybe it's 6 months now, we've been developing an AI assessment tool using our plain language standard. So I naively thought at the start, we'll just give it the standard and we'll tell it how we want the output to be generally. No, follow the standard. That would be a good thing. No, it has taken months and months and months to get to a point where we are happy with it. And it needs criteria. It absolutely needs criteria. And the question of should you get AI to do it or should you have a human do it, the answer is both. You are always going to need the human on it. And I would never, ever, ever rely on AI to do a final edit or a final anything. But if you use AI, you need the human input. Otherwise, you don't know what criteria it is using, and you will be very disappointed. It might look great many times, but then you'll get the times when, how did it miss that? What was it thinking? I have said to myself, strangely, many times.
Claire, any thoughts on reviewing?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question. I have noticed that if you ask AI to review something, it gives you fairly generic responses, and actually they're good at all of the kind of things that we would normally try to do in good writing, like don't have sentences that are too long, have really strong topic sentences at the start of your paragraphs, all of those sort of things. I think it is great for spell check and weeding out unnecessary wordy phrases, but you do have to be very careful that it's reviewing to the tone you want. Otherwise, I have seen it sometimes just make everything sound a bit samey.
Yes, yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Okay, lovely. Well, folks, we've got so many questions coming through and we've got very limited time. We're going to have one more question. And the tagline for this is writings with your team. So we want to have a team question here. And we've got a couple of questions that I'm going to lump into a general question here. Is that how do I train my team to use AI as a writing assistant without them becoming over-reliant or losing their critical thinking skills? What would you say to anyone who is a manager out there or works as part of a team? What could we do to make sure that people are using AI wisely? Claire, would you say anything, just kind of immediate tips on that one?
Yeah, I think as we go and work with organizations, we see sometimes people feel a bit guilty about using AI, I think, especially if it's faster. So if I was getting my team to try and make the most of it, I'd really encourage more discussion around it and asking them, get them to really think what could go wrong here as a team, what should we avoid, what could help, what can we do, and getting specific and regularly talking and sharing about what works and doesn't work. That'd be my tip.
What would you say there, Lynda?
Yeah, I really agree with that. Certainly what can go wrong, thinking back to the AI slop, it signals so many good things that you need to look at. I think that also coming back to the criteria, agreeing as a team on what you are going to expect of AI and the style in which you want it to respond. Even though we talk about AI plus human, that's our tagline for one of our brands, but really, if you want good output out of AI, it has to have human involvement. It has to, you can't just let it do its own thing. And so as a team, to me, that's one of the most important things people need to understand. And your own brand voice and who you are as an organization, how you want to speak to each other if you're using AI to draft internal memos or whatever it is. So there's so much thinking involved with AI. And I think people worry that they're going to get brain dead if they use AI. That will happen if it's the one-shot prompt and then you fire it out into the world. But if you're using it well as a tool, as a collaborator, your critical thinking skills, it's like thinking, how do I tell someone to tie a shoelace? You have got to think hard about every single bit. Thinking together as a team and creating common expectations is what I would do.
Very good. And I guess the side benefit of that is that it's going to make you much more aware of all of the things that you do without maybe even thinking about it. And also all of the aspects of your identity, like you said, your brand, your voice, the things that make you you. It really shows you yourself when you have to describe it to someone else. Okay, folks, I'm going to ask our consultants for their final words. So hang on for a minute. And a final reminder that if you are interested in knowing more, half an hour is not enough time to tell you everything that we have to tell you. So if you've asked a question and we haven't got to it, sorry, folks. And if you want to know more, you can go on our AI workshop. They are online. You can join from anywhere. So thanks very much, folks, for joining us. I'm going to pass very shortly to Claire and Lynda for their final word. But thank you if you've submitted a question. And good luck out there with your AI writing. It will make you a better writer if you use it wisely. Okay, last word, Claire. What would you say to those folks out there who want to use AI to make them a better writer?
Keep focusing on the writing. That would be those words. But I also just want to use my last little slot to say there's some really interesting questions in the chat, and I'm sorry we haven't got to them all, but that is the joy of the workshop, because discussing those as a group, people have all sorts of ideas and experiences, and yeah, I'd love to meet some of those people and keep talking at some point.
Great. Well, you might be fortunate enough, folks, if you book, to have Claire as your trainer. All right, Lynda, what's your final word for folks out there?
Okay, mine is, if you're trying to get to grips with whether what you've produced is good or not, two things. Is it authentic and is it clear?
Very good. Very good. So thanks again for joining us. All the best out there. And we hope to see you either on the workshop or at another Right Group Live Q&A.